Hey everyone, this is Barry 3D from the Iconist Podcast. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. Don't let the show be a secret. And today, we are talking about maybe a lesser known comic book property, G.I. Joe? Hey everyone, so as I was saying, we're talking about G.I. Joe. Now I know you're going to say, Barry, how's G.I. Joe lesser known? We've talked about G.I. Joe before. Everyone has talked about G.I. Joe. What I mean by lesser known is, did you know in 1964, issues number 53 and 54 of DC Showcase were the ones that brought out G.I. Joe in comic book media back then? Huh? That's right. So before Marvel, before IDW, before all the other companies that had GI Joe, because it's changed over hands over the time, it started off in DC Showcase issues number 53 and 54, and that was by Joe Kubert as the artist, and you had other writers behind it. So how it worked out was they had 3 stories per issue. So a total of 6 stories, and it didn't have the flashy names, the code names, the base. It had no Cobra. These took place during World War II, and it focused really on the soldiers. So the dolls that were made by Hasbro, the 12-inch dolls, and each one, be it if it was Army, Marines, Air Force, it covered all of them, and it gave them a time to shine. Now, was it smart for them to put that out in December? I believe so, because, hey, how better way to generate sales of your toys than to put them into storylines in comic books, so anyone that's buying it will have, hey, this is how we can interact and recreate these stories and come up with our own, right? It just unlocks the imagination. Very smart. So this is why I think Hasbro did it. So now, first of all, this is before Marvel had that resurgence with G.I. Joe, and Larry Hama went really with it. And it was interesting that it was bringing it out. So, now keep in mind, DC Showcase is a comic book series I've talked about before that introduced us to writers, characters that we never knew at that time. For example, it gave us Barry Allen, The Flash. That's where he made his debut. The Creeper, Hawkman and Hawkwoman in DC Showcase, along with Shadow Thief. So these are people that showed up along with Sergeant Rock, Easy Company, so forth like that. So back in 1964, G.I. Joe, we all know the dolls, the action figures, they were put out because Barbie was doing such great numbers that the boys needed something, and they say, hey, let's give them something, equal height, articulation, changeable clothes, and of course, the market blew up with the dolls. Why did things change? Well, it changed because of the Vietnam War. It changed that, hey, things weren't looking good, and they didn't want to, sell a toy for war to kids. So it went from G.I. Joe the Soldiers to G.I. Joe the Adventure Team. And this is where it wasn't so much Army, but then he had the beard. The 1970s Chuck Norris beard and mustache. He was a tough man. And it was the Adventure Team going around the world finding, pulling things like Indiana Jones, right? Finding hidden civilizations and so forth. And they had to fight this one creature. It was like a ape-ish looking monster, a brute, this alien, and that was the sole villain for them. But of course you had G.I. Joe, and you had different versions of them, right? Black, white, you had Bullet Man that joined the Adventure Team, the Super Adventure Team, you had Mike, Atomic Mike, right? Was almost their version of the $6 Million Man. And they did like mini comics in the back, like one-pagers back of certain comics to advertise the toys. And of course, they had playsets. Now, keep in mind, their playsets, the figure is 12 inches tall, so the playsets were huge. Be it their bases, be it if it was the Jeep, their tackle box. I had a few of them myself. I had one that was called the Skyhawk, which was literally a kite, where your figure could sit down in it. It opens up, and you'd have to run and pull it and get like a true kite, and you'd be able to have him, many feet above your head at the park with that. Now, I'm sure if we had cameras back then, like we do now, social media, or if you had a camera on your cell phone, people would be taking pictures of this and putting it out there. But of course, you can find these on the market, and of course, they have their price tag to them. So I had that one as a kid. I had the other one where it was like the swamp boat, and he had an alligator. I thought that was kind of cool. Anyways, that's my G.I. Joe experience. Now, why I say lesser known is because we know the toys. Be it the soldiers, be it the adventure team, be it the super adventure team. But we never really fully had a comic book with them since then. And I think that it would be interesting to turn around and bring back some creators, or get creators now. I don't mean have to bring back the ones before, but get people that have interest in it and make like, short stories, mini series with the original GI Joes, and show maybe that they were the prototype for the team that we recognize today, right? With like Duke and Snake Eyes and Scarlet and CoverGirl and Timber, right? Spirit, right? Like Freedom, like the whole 9 yards. Cobra Commander. So I know they did cover this really briefly, and they brought in the original Joe, and I think it was in the original the GI Joe Real American Hero, and I'm not sure what issue it was, but they brought in Joe Clayton, and you do, Colonel Clayton, and you do see him played by Bruce Willis in the live action GI Joe movies. But I think that's more. He's retired. He's at the end. He's gone through this. This is the person that kind of put things in motion. Why not? Why not give us a miniseries on maybe Joe back in his younger days, at the beginning, the prequel, as it will, of what could have been starting the G.I. Joe team, and him taking random soldiers to make an elite force to go ahead. And I think that would come across in some good stories and comic books, add more history to what we have already, and then get into the transition from them going from soldiers per se into the adventure team in comic is what I'm talking about. Darwin Cooke, the artist, rest in peace, he's passed away a long time ago, was pitching an idea on doing the original GI Joe team comic book, right? This is no Duke, no Snake Eyes, no Hawk, no Cobra Commander, no the Crimson Twins, none of that. This was going back to the original. Let's get back to the beginning of his career and all the stories we didn't get back then. Could they do it as miniseries once every couple of months or years? Sure, let's go with that. And I would say let's start with G.I. Joe, the 12-inch doll, right before the adventure team, and get into some of his adventures. See how the military and his military adventures took place. They took place obviously in World War II, change the setting, but do those adventures, or maybe keep it around that time, maybe tail end. Do those adventures, and then shift him to G.I. Joe, the adventure team. Still could be, instead of independently run, it could be still a military thing, but doing something different for the military. And this is the birth of the Real American Hero years down the line. But let him go and pick out his special list and have that elite team. Doesn't need to have 40 members in it. Keep it small, tight team, and there we go. And then use things that we would remember from the playset in there, right? And it wouldn't be neat as product placement. These are products that would still be neat, and you'd say, oh, I had this toy, I had that toy. This is how he's using it in this mission. This is how he's using that in mission, right? So from the Jeeps to the mobile base to the Skyhawk, the whole 9 yards. This is where I think this would shine as a miniseries and go through and add more to that G.I. Joe lore, right? I think DC Comics Showcase started it, and it fell, and Darwin was really a fan of it and wanted to bring it back. And of course, it just didn't make it to paper. I especially if you could tie that into Cobra present day, even if they have to go Cobra Law and something like, I know, but give them maybe some other villains to fight. So this is my 2 cents. G.I. Joe should have a miniseries. G.I. Joe should have, and I mean a miniseries on the original character. So bring back Joe Clayton, give him the earlier adventures, do some adventures with the adventure team, and bring them in. And I think, I believe there's interest in it. If you agree, write it in the comments below and let me know. Till then, remember, this whole world was created by a pencil, a piece of paper, and lots of imagination. Keep on dreaming.